We're a couple nights away from Canadian football officially being back. We're on to the first time ever in my show's history having a guest representing the Ottawa Redblacks in the nation's capital. A passing of the Dinwiddie torch kind of episode, if you will. It is Shane Ryan from 13th Man Sports. How are we doing? June
I'm
2nd,
good.
weather's good, football's back.
Yeah, I mean, Ottawa weather has been kind of moody. Some pretty cold days. If you had the pleasure or displeasure, depending on how you want to put it, to come to the preseason, if you were at the preseason game in Ottawa on the 29th, it was a windy one, so not the greatest weather. But I mean, weather's starting to take a turn. I think it was like plus 20 today in the Ottawa area. So hopefully, it's supposed to be well for their home opener on Saturday. So
We had similar in Guelph. It was fine, but then the wind was like whipping and it really picked up. And like, I brought a quarter zip just to be like, hey, maybe towards the end of the night it's a little chilly. No, like halfway through the second quarter, I'm like, I gotta put this thing on. Like, I literally have like the depth charts like on my MacBook, like just so it doesn't like blow and hit the people right in front of me. Because when at the University of Guelph, you're not in a standard press box. You just have like, they have like a row of tables on like the very last row that like
oof.
everyone's kind of assemblated at. But yeah, no, kind of off the crazy weather onto good weather. At least we weren't in Edmonton where it was apparently a thunderstorm. So
Yeah,
that's
torrential
that's
downpour
that's
for the Team Canada friendly or the pre World Cup.
it.
Um,
Tune-up game, international friendly. But I meant
yeah.
even Friday night though, their game Edmonton Calgary. It was the same
Oh yeah,
sort of
that was
circumstance.
also yeah. Unfortunately, with it all being Friday night, wasn't really able to catch all of it live. Had to watch a couple, kind of the on the Saturday, kind of speed through the games, kind of
Yeah,
put it on like times two speed and watch what I was able to watch on the Saturday.
I was like, all good, all good. Um, but no, going into gears just because, and I've been saying this, and everyone's been kind of on the same page with what Ottawa is because I want to go back to the 2024 playoffs. They come into Toronto, don't give the best performance. Obviously, they didn't win the game, but that day though, everyone kind of left being like, "What's this team going to be in 2025?" To where regression came, and then towards the end of the season, I feel like everyone thought, this is going in a different direction, but it was the what direction it's going to be going into. I don't think people know about it. And then Sean Burke and other executives decided to. They were like, "Hey, we're going big game hunting," and for some reason, Toronto was like, "Okay, fine, you can have him." And now you have Ryan Dinwiddie calling the shots as head coach NGM in Ottawa, and then also OC. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens in year one. But I kind of respect Ottawa for basically going from, the Bob Dice hire was fine, but like I said, towards the end of it, we kind of realized not the man for the job to where now I think there's not, I don't know what, I'll ask you this. As someone who roots for the nation's capital and is from the area, what's the vibe around the Red Blacks going into 2026?
It's a lot of pessimism. They again, Ottawa has been bad for a very long time, and even when you were good, we weren't actually that good, right? You go back to even the Rick Campbell era. You only had two winning seasons from 2014 to 2018, or 2019, I guess, because that's his last year. Obviously, then the La Police era wasn't the greatest. Bob Dice comes in. The 2024 start is really really good, um, and then things kind of fall apart right around Labor Day, and then 2025 is just injury prone. Obviously, only seen the playoffs once since the 2019 season. There's just a lot of you gotta prove that you're a good team, and I will be very honest. No matter what happens this year, good
Mm-hmm.
or bad, it will not make a difference if next year they're bad, right? I think if they're going into this year and they go like, let's say they go 12-6, that's a
Yeah.
respectable number. If they go 11-7, they host a playoff game, they even win a playoff game. It doesn't matter if they go into next year and crap the bed. Ottawa, there needs to be consistency. So no matter what, I think this year is more of like if you can generate some interest, if you can win some games, get into that, like bring a winning season to the nation's capital, get a playoff game, that's going to be great. But the fan base is still going to be very hesitant unless you can replicate that success in back to back years. And I think, you know, Dinwiddie and the current coaching staff is the right people for the job. And I think people are willing to give Dinwiddie a chance based off the two Grey Cups in 5 years with Toronto. Um, but it doesn't matter what they do this year if they cannot create a consistent winning team, right? You need to turn into like the Blue Bombers, what like O'Shea has with Winnipeg, or what we've seen with Calgary with Dickinson and Huffnagel and whatnot. That's what you need to build towards. And as much as we want to see a Grey Cup this year, I think Grey Cup doesn't matter if you go into next year and you crap the bed again.
So that's an interesting the way to look at it. Because my theory with them always was like, and I'm always like 50-50 on Ottawa, just because you know how it went, like we said 2024 was this. Would you chalk it up as successful? What happened in 24, or like when you take away what happened in 2025? Like,
So
do
I
you look
think
at 24 as like, hey, it was a good year, or
so. This is the thing, right? They started, I think, like 9-1, if I remember correctly. They released uh Armstead after a blow up on the sidelines against BC in the Pacific touchdown game.
yes, in Victoria?
And yeah, um, and then Pickett gets hurt, and then it was just kind of a stumbling effect, right? You never actually replaced Armstead. You went into the playoff game against Toronto without an actual running back. You basically forced Drew Brown to throw the ball 60 times to even have a chance to win, excluding what was actually going on the field. Like, you knew going into that game, and I mentioned it on the weekly show at the time, that like they were going to throw the ball. They were going to be a pass heavy team. Like, you were going to see 40, 50 pass attempts. And as a defensive coordinator, if you know they're going to throw the ball, you can just sit back and, you know, make life hell for a quarterback. So I wouldn't even call it a success. It was progress, but it was a tale of two halves in the for Dice and Co. Um, and then I think in 2025 they just were never to get their footing. Right, injuries in training camp. You had guys who you were expecting to take a bigger role in the offense kind of retire before camp or during camp. And I think they couldn't get, and I don't think they ever actually had their full team healthy at any time of the year. Like, if you go into camp, who you had as your projected starters, none of them were healthy at the same time. So 2024 was it was progress, but it wasn't a successful year. And then 2025, everything that could go wrong went wrong for the club.
So now when we look ahead to 2026, obviously it's a brand new team. There's guys being brought in because, and this is the one thing I always took away from Dinwiddie in his time with the Argonauts. You know how sometimes in a workplace, if a boss likes you, like you see it more in retail, if a boss likes you, or the people who really like the boss will like, they'll suck up to him and then they'll be his best friend. But then there's those people where if
Yeah.
you don't like the manager, they can make your life hell. I'm not saying Dinwiddie's like that, but you quickly can see who he likes and who he doesn't like. That's why, like, for example, I think, and I'll get your opinion on this. Why I think for what I thought was going to be in a situation with the quarterback room, I thought it was going to be Drew Brown on a short leash. It was going to be his job, but Dinwiddie came in and basically said, "Hey, no, this is Jake's job. He's like Jake ever since Calgary. That's why he brought in Max Duggan. That's why Anthony Casey, when he got released from Toronto, went to Ottawa." I I feel like this year there'll be signs. I just don't know if I can fully confidently say yet. Yeah, hey, this is a team that's going to go in there and take over because mainly, you have all these other teams in the East. We don't know what Toronto's going to be. We just don't. And Montreal and Montreal and Hamilton, excuse me. There's very heightened expectations for both teams as a Grey Cup loser and as a team who has a near 30-year drought of not winning the championship to end that. So I'm very interested to see, more or less, can Ottawa steal a couple games or two that they're supposed to steal? That's my big question for them. What kind of, how are we going to see it with them? And more importantly, that game June 20th, that Saturday at 1 o'clock p.m. start when Toronto comes to town, what side of Dinwiddie are we going to see? Are we going to, is his emotions going to get the better of him because it's his former guys? Or is he gonna put the suit on and say, let's go to work? I know he's the kind of guy who will do the let's go to work, but you have to be wondering how many hours of sleep he's going to get that week. I would say 7 hours is my over under for the entire week leading up to that
Yeah, I
week 3 game.
mean, I think every coach is like that, right? You like
Oh, I know
every
it, but
coach
I mean
has his
especially that
favorites,
week.
right? Like, but I mean, like in terms of player favorites, every
Yeah,
coach is like that, right? It guys who you feel fit your system, fit the personality that you're looking for.
that's why Darius Pickett's not there. There is something there. No, it's never been publicly said, but
Oh
Pickett's
yeah, I
the
mean
lead
there
forward.
was reports of it, and I mean I was kind of, you know, I understood the minute he was hired that the writing might have been on the wall. I
Yep.
mean I know internally around Ottawa there, you know, what has been said is they had a sit down, conversation about where they were going and what the situation was, and kind of let Pickett decide on where he wanted to go and what he wanted to do. They had a value, they had a dollar value that they wanted for him,
Yep.
and it was kind of, hey, this is where we see you. This is how much we're willing to pay. Um, if there's no negotiating, like we'll give you your early release, and that's kind of the direction they went. My understanding, again, what's kind of been said out there so far, has been respectful on both, but I think with Brown specifically, I mean, I was basically there all but maybe 5 to 6 days of training camp. Um, Neither quarterback looked great throughout camp. They all had their bad moments. They all had their good moments. They all had their great moments. There were, ball placement issues, some bad throws by both Brown and Mayer. Um, they both had some really good ball placement where it was like, the perfect place where like only your receiver is going to catch it. Then they had their, your standard, like, okay, you expect them to make this read type plays. Like neither of them really kind of took control. I do think that Mayer putting up 2 touchdowns on 3 drives against, the basically the starting Alouettes defense for the most part is kind of what solidified that starting role, kind of seeing how he took control of the offense. I mean, Dinwiddie's been very clear. He's been very consistent with his messaging towards the media after practice with what he's saying or how, like, he's very process driven. He's like,
Yeah.
we ask him what he's looking for. So he wants someone who commands the huddle. Like he's very consistent with how he approaches media. So it doesn't make me feel like he's flip flopping between what he's looking for. It feels like the messaging is consistent in that room. But I think, and this is when he got signed, I genuinely think Mayer fits the Dinwiddie system
Yeah.
better. Like here's the thing. If you go back on the weekly show, I've not been a huge fan of Jake Mayer as a quarterback. He's a great person to talk to. But as a quarterback, there's a lot left to be desired when you look at his numbers and what he's done over the last couple of years. But he's a better quarterback for Dinwiddie's system. He fits the skill set that Dinwiddie looks for of a quarterback. And I don't think Drew Brown does. I think Drew Brown's a little bit too much of a he's a little bit too much of a gunslinger, and a little bit too hesitant to pull and run, but also a little less lenient, or is a little bit more lenient with his ball security.
Yeah. But no,
So
I like how you said everything there. But even to like Dinwiddie's talked high about Mayer before because not that he was there when he was drafted, but he was in Calgary when they were scouting him originally. So he always kind of
yeah,
saw, the early onset process of what Jake Mayer could be as a quarterback. And Dinwiddie's always had the side to him. And just to clear up my comments from earlier about the whole like who he doesn't like and not like, but we kind of see with Dinwiddie, like the guy, like for example, if you kind of lose that trust factor or if you can't play his style, kind of like that's what happened to Cameron Dukes. That's why Cameron Dukes fell out of favor during that 2024 suspension year with Chad, and then he was cut during camp also because he eventually became a check down merchant and just couldn't. Dinwiddie didn't trust him to throw the ball downfield. But no, I do like how you go with it just because with Ottawa too, you still have a solid receiving core. Running back's the interesting position this year. I just feel like they're the like you said too how 2024 there really wasn't a running back. I feel like them and Toronto, those were the question marks really come, because when you look at those teams, you don't like I don't know if you look at it and you see right away who the true RB1 is going to be, but Ottawa's a team that can kind of come out of nowhere and prove a lot of people wrong, in the sense of just like, because I don't know if people think that they're going to be good right away, but I think there's a lot of people who just think that it is going to be a process, and that it's more about the long-term vision. Like think of it as like hindsight's 2030 compared to 2026 or
Here's the
2027.
thing is that, like, this might come off as homerism to some.
Yep.
There's a lot of really good football players in that locker room.
Yeah.
There's a lot of championship mentality, right? Like, you brought in Allen, you brought in Rivas, you brought in Baldonado, you brought in Lawler, you brought in McEwen and Mayer, who are literally just coming off of a Grey Cup win, right? You've had players see success through it. You have a coaching staff that has won Grey Cups in this league, right? There's a lot of just overall talent within that locker room. And you have a coach who's won 2 Grey Cups in 5 years and won a Grey Cup with a quarterback that many people thought shouldn't have been in the league at the time, in Nick Arbuckle. It made Nick Arbuckle look, like a high quality player, 4,000 yards. Like, I think people look at Ottawa and Ottawa's history and write them off because of it. They don't actually look at who's on that coaching staff, who's on that field. And when you actually take a look at who's on the field and who's in that coaching staff, they're arguably the best team in the East. And the only reason why I say that they are arguably the best team in the East is I think they have depth that some teams in the East don't have.
Yep.
They have star power that some teams in the East don't have. And they have reliability in positions and durability in positions that you don't have across the, like, in the Eastern Conference, in the Eastern Division, right? Like, and I think they also have depth, right? Like, I think their quarterback situation is the best across the East.
I think we may have lost Shane for a second. I'm going to we'll take what's known as a brief commercial break and come right back. That's all good. It's literally, so folks, just so there's a little bit of a technical difficulty. All I have to do is press a button that has 2 lines and then a triangle to go from pause the recording to play the recording. But we're back. The big thing with me with Ottawa is it's not so much writing them off because of past history. It's just, I think they're going to kind of, I think if you were to compare what, like a metaphor for the Ottawa Red, I almost said 67. Sorry, my brain's on CHL and OHL right now. But with the Red Blacks, and also Sumi, they basically play in the same building. With the Red Blacks, I feel like it's going to be like an onion, or even like how the tree, like, like how, like, because I know the tradition, they basically saw off a piece of the tree for whenever they score a touchdown. But in reality, I think their season's going to be like an onion, where I feel like we're going to find out about them, like, as you peel it back one layer at a time. I feel like it's not just going to be within the first few weeks of the season. We're not going to know what this Red Blacks team is going to be. I feel like by August, right around the August long weekend, I feel like that's when we're really going to know where is Ottawa and what direction are they going in. Are they the Red Blacks we know, that we've come to know, that's not been the best over the last 5-6 years? Or is this, hey, they've turned a new leaf and Ryan Dinwiddie's legit? Like, and I don't mean legit in that sense, but I mean just legit in the sense that he turned around a program that's been needing to be turned a program that struggled over basically since the turn of the calendar from the 2010s to the 2020s.
Yeah. And I mean, again, maybe it's because I get to see them more frequently. Like, I'm there at least twice a week, if not more, if I can. But I think when they hit the field, this should be and could be the best team Ottawa has seen since 2015, when we had 4 1,000-yard receivers. And, we were 12-6. We were kind of running muck across the East Division. But I don't know. I think people look at the team more so than the players and kind of come up with, their conclusions based off that. I think recency bias is a huge impact across the media in the CFL. I think it's the biggest thing with them.
the, my thing more or less just is I don't want to like because that's the thing with the CFL that like is like look for as much as I've come to enjoy the CFL, I love the NFL. I'm a psychopath NFL fan. The thing with the CFL that's great is the fact that there is parity every single year. That like hey we I feel like right now you could probably say what four maybe three or four teams that could have a chance to get to Calgary, but then besides that like and what I would say the three or four teams is would be probably BC, Sask, Ottawa, not Ottawa. Sorry about that. Hamilton and Montreal. But then besides that, you have Calgary where it's just like, hey, we don't know what Calgary's going to be. You have Edmonton, who's in the same boat as you guys, where it's just like, hey, what are they going to be in the second year? Mark Killam with Cody Fajardo as an established starter, and there's no quarterback questions. Is this the year that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers finally fall off? Like, not fall off a cliff, but like, is this the year that the Winnipeg Blue Bombers finally take that step back? I feel like a lot of people have been not
Waiting for that.
but they've been waiting for.
Yeah.
And then, and not in a homerish way, but the Toronto Argonauts are the biggest wild card going into the 2026 season. We just do not know what they're going to be because they went from East Final being their floor. Their floor for 4 straight years was getting to the East Final, whether they won that game or they lost that game, to going 5-13 and just everything coming off the rails. And they basically getting, I'll be honest with you, they did a shit job at just filling the cupboard again. The cupboard was left bare after they won the Grey Cup. Everyone went off. Like Sean Amos went to Hamilton. Robert Priester went to Ottawa.
Well, I mean, it's the same conversation.
Half the team went to Edmonton.
Yeah, I mean, the same conversations are being had with Saskatchewan this year, right? Like, pretty sure they lost 3 out of their 4 starting defensive linemen.
I don't feel like they lost enough though to where it's not going to be a glaring note. Like,
well, no, they kept most like their secondary is still intact. Unlike Toronto, which like they lost, I think like 7 of their 12 starters from their 2024 Grey Cup. I think Saskatchewan lost like not even, I think 6 maybe. Because they lost their two starting linebackers. They lost Carney. They lost Baldonado. But I think like they may have only lost 5 or 6 guys, and they had rotational pieces already kind of in the system, right? Like it's not like they lost them without a plan. They believe in who they have.
And the fact that Corey Mace is a defensive head coach. That's the thing. Yeah. That's the reason why I still have the confidence, because it's basically a defense built in his image. The big questions for me with them is just really, what is Trevor Harris going to look like now that he's 40 years old? Does age start to show? Because and I know look, a lot of quarterbacks play until they're older, but that's a huge talking point with the NFL when guys get older is just how do they look as you get older? Like, because as they say, father time's undefeated.
And they don't again. I think a lot of the hype around Calgary is VA, right? You take, and I think this is my issue, right? A lot of the hype around Calgary, when people are like, "Oh, Calgary's should be a top 3 or top 4 team in the league," is because of VA, right? A lot of people like VA. A lot of people think VA is a top 4 quarterback. He gets treated like it. If you were to put Jake Mayer or Drew Brown in Calgary, are people having that conversation? If you were to swap the quarterbacks between Calgary and Ottawa, probably not. I think Ottawa is in that conversation as a top 3 team in the league because of it, right?
I think Ottawa's challenging Montreal for top. I know Hamilton won the East last year, but I believe if you put VA on Ottawa, it's between Montreal and Ottawa for first.
Exactly. But like realistically, Calgary doesn't have anyone outside of VA, right? Their quarterback situation is, and VA's isn't the most healthiest guy. I don't think he's played, close to a full season at all during his career, which no one's wishing for him to get hurt. But historically, he's injury prone, right?
He also has a track record of not playing the best when it gets cold outside.
Exactly. Yeah. When you're forcing him to throw the ball and things kind of get tightened and, is he that guy? So I think recency biased, or I don't even want to say recency biased, but I think some people, they get a vision on someone, and no matter what happens around it, that vision or that picture that they have of that person or that player stays the same. Like the rose tinted glasses. And I think it's more prominent now in sports media as a whole. We see it everywhere. But I think you see it a lot. Like it's more prominent in the CFL because of how small the league is.
Yeah, which look, in my like that's why I feel like the Calgary went out there and added Dejan Brissett. They just got Jalen Hutchings back. Who knows? Who knows if Flo is going to play on Friday night? Although I will say this, and this was said by one of my colleagues at Three Down Nation. You want Flo to be healthy for September, October, November. You do not need him to be healthy in June.
No,
And that's not saying a
100%.
bad thing, but you do not want to rush him back coming off of an Achilles injury like that, because
Oh,
last year
100%.
he was the motor that made that defense go.
Yeah, him and Hutchinson. Those two were
Yeah.
fantastic.
I do really like what Dejan Brissett's capable of there with Jalen Philpott and Clark Barnes. I think that's a very solid trio at receiver. But when I look at the West, though, and I have a take that I'm going to share with you, I've shared it on the show before. I know I say there's a lot of parity in the CFL, and I know for some teams you say not getting to or not winning a championship's a failure. I honestly believe, though, if the BC Lions don't at least get to Calgary, the season's viewed as a failure.
Oh, 100%. I don't even think that should be like
No.
for Calgary's or BC. In my opinion, BC and Hamilton, it's Grey Cup or bust.
Hamilton's weird just because I think BC's more just like there's that pressure there because it's the second year of Buck. It's like hell. I don't know if anyone got to read it yet, but in Three Down Nation today, literally MOC, it was literally one guy, MOP. Me and our Montreal reporter voted for. I have Davis Alexander's my pick for MOP for the season. I just feel like if he's healthy, he leads them to a number one seed. It's him. But Nathan Rourke is going to eventually get into that territory, like where, for example, in hockey, where Connor McDavid is right now, where it's, hey, you've got everything else. You do not have a championship.
Yeah, he's going to be in the conversation. Like he's going to be the Henry Burris of this generation.
I just said McDavid just because that was the name that popped into my head.
Yeah.
But with Hamilton, though, I feel like for them, it's more, if not now, when. Because I really feel like even if you like keep the same core, like I feel like they did all the right moves because with them, defense is the big question mark. And then if you do move off of Bo, it's eventually can Trey command a Scott Milanovich ran offense? Like that's the thing I don't know about. And then I know they got Kenny Lawler. I know they got a few other pieces there, but even still with them, like, for example, with Hamilton, like, I still look at that Labor Day game last year. That game was chaotic. I was right there on the field when Haralahu kicked the game-winning field goal. That's a game you're supposed to win. You put the clamps. They had Keandre Smith and Kenny Lawler go for over 100 yards in that game, and they still found a way to lose. So that's the thing with Hamilton. They always – it's not that they – I feel like they always find a way to lose games. They never find ways to win games.
My thing with Hamilton was last year was that if you shut down Kenny Lawler and you force the other guys to win – that's where you can beat them, right? Like their secondary wasn't the greatest.
They have one player I really love on their secondary though. One for personal reasons and one for play reasons. The personal, I've always liked Jamal Peters, and then Stav is just I believe.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like they have great players. They weren't meshing, right? Like there was communication errors. Like they just weren't meshing well. But like you shut down Kenny Lawler, you were then forcing Bo to go to Keandre Smith.
Turnowski
or Tim White like there was just and I think for Hamilton though you have Bo Levi and you talk about age and Father Time. Bo Levi is getting up there in age, but I do agree with the BC thing. I think Nathan Rourke is entering that conversation that people were having with Henry Burris. I know he won one in 2008, but there was a lot of conversations that like could he win one, right? Like can he win more than one? Is he a guy who's going to be really, really dominant in the regular season and kind of be a consistent MOP conversationist, but then not be able to win the game come playoffs? Or is he going to be able to, finish it all? And I think with Rourke, this is the year he has to do it. I don't see him being able to go into 2027 without at least being in the Grey Cup. Like he has to get over the West final hump. He needs to get into a Grey Cup. He doesn't necessarily need to win it this year, but I think he has to at least get into it, showing that, hey, I can get to this game. I can get to this game. And as long as he's not the reason they lose the game, because we've seen plenty of times teams losing the Grey Cup, not because of quarterback play and not being the reason BC loses it.
So the big thing with BC too is just like last year was the same thing for them, defense excuses. Here's the other thing too with BC. If you don't finish first in the West, like the answers are going to creep in. Like, hey, you got to go on the road and win. Because I even think for them that would be better. Because if if they say if they win the West semifinal at home, whether they beat like say if it's Calgary or Winnipeg, and then or even Edmonton or even Sask, because we just don't know how the standings are going to play out. And then you have to go to one of the teams I just listed on the road in what's probably going to be a frigid November night in the first Saturday in November. And then if you lose, conversation's just going to be the same. What's going to happen then if you have a great season, you're going to be MOP, and then you have to accept that award on a Thursday night, but deep in your heart of hearts, you're not playing football on Sunday in Calgary. You're not playing. And here's the other thing, too, why I think this year's important as well. It's because, look, next year I know it's a little bit of a Mickey Mouse format that's being introduced, but it literally is going to be, I feel like that is going to be an asterisk that follows him where it's just, 90% of the league make the playoffs. It's like, it's easy, pal, now. I think this year is the one test where he can really not shut people up, but more just prove, hey, I am who you think I am. That's I think the 100% truth with Nathan Rourke this year. You win it when the playoffs are still at 6 teams, you're golden, you're set, your legacy is not going to be tarnished. Meanwhile, you win in the 18 playoff format, that's where the asterisks will come out for some people. I'm not saying I am. I'm just saying that there are people who will do that. They'll play that card.
Yeah. I feel that's a great segue into into that format. Right. Like, I think the CFL did an awful job at announcing that change. I feel like they could have easily kind of put things to bed if they just came out and were like, we're going to have the top 4 teams make the playoffs. 5 through 8 are going to play a play-in game, and then 1 and 2 are going to play for the right to have a bye to the semifinals or the division finals, however you want to call it. That way you can still keep that integrity of a 6-team playoff.
Even if you did 7 and just did 1 bye across the league for the best team, it's still not the best, but it's not
because then
bad.
that takes away the divisions, right? And that's what they were trying to keep. But I do agree. Like, some people are like, oh, you kind of get rid of the playoff, like you kind of minimize the regular season with this new format. In my opinion, I think it makes the regular season even more entertaining, and it makes it more interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because now you're not just battling for the top seed in the playoffs, like top seed to get that first round bye. You're now battling for the top 2, because then you have 2 chances of getting, like, if you lose that 1-2 game, well, you're not completely out of it. You have a chance to still go back, right? So you're now playing that 1-2 spot, and you're not only playing that 1-2 spot, you're playing for the best spot in the league. Like, you are going for that President's Trophy, so to speak, because that way you get the whatever lowest seed. So if for whatever reason that number 7 seed or that number 8 seed make it all the way to that semifinal, you should have a team that's 4, 5, 6 wins below you when you're coming off a bye. You have a home playoff game, and you're set.
It's tough to describe, just because at first I was like, you know what, hey, Stuart Johnson's like completely in the mindset of like, hey, I'm not going to be complacent, I'm going to change. The one that I more had a problem with, and I know from a complaining standpoint, is the fact that people were upset about the zone part with the new TV contracts, where I know people are saying like, oh, the cost of this, the cost of that. I'm like, it's one game a week, and you're basically, I think CMC fans have to recognize with that, he's not looking to go after who's currently here. He wants to bring in new people, because with DAZN, it's sorry, there was a piece of plastic on my foot that I started squishing. With DAZN, he's bringing in people. I don't know how old you are, but I assume you and I are in a similar age range. Those are the people he's looking to bring in, the people that are like mid-20s, early 30s, mid-30s that don't watch the CFL, to where then now you're giving them that option to do so. But more than anything with the TV contracts, And I know we spoke about weather just with, what happened in Guelph last Friday night and then what happened in Ottawa with weather. The early start, I don't know how to feel about it, but I feel like it's good, but at the same time too, I don't like the whole, oh, people don't know when the season starts, where, and to paraphrase my guys from Three Down Nation, it's always the first Saturday in June. I don't know if they should have done Victoria Day, just because Victoria Day can be very unpredictable. I would have probably just bumped it up by a week, but we all know now that they bumped it up by 2 weeks because of the new playoff format. So that's where I'm interested to see, because I think more people are more inclined to go to a bad weather game in October or November compared to a bad weather game in May.
Yeah, I mean, I think no matter what, there's going to be problems that, are out of your control, right? Bad weather is bad weather. You can't really control that. Doesn't matter if it's in May.
I meant more like a dreary, rainy May day compared to like a chilly autumn afternoon.
Yeah, but I mean, we get bad weather in June that causes 2-3 hour delays, right? So
fair enough.
Like the bad weather thing, people who want to go will go. People who don't want to go won't go. That's the same if we have a game in November versus a game in April. Right? Bad weather games, you're going to have people who want to go because, they don't care. It's live sports. It's live football. They're diehards. They're going to go. They'll just bundle up more. I think for me personally, as someone who tries to do a lot with like the draft and like prospects and whatnot, the early, like the pre-NFL draft time slot for the CFL draft is going to be very interesting. How does that work? Obviously you're going to have guys like Mesidor, who kind of solidify themselves as a draft pick, but you may not have as much clarity as around like Nicholas Henning, for example. Yeah. Who, good on him from taking the most out of that Raiders rookie camp and turning it into a contract. But you might not have that same kind of lockdown on those types of players. But I don't know. I think, earlier season ending, earlier free agency, earlier draft coverage, earlier, like, combine, it looks like they're starting to create less of a gap between like the big events where, free agency is going to be probably in January instead of February. And, you're not going to go like an entire month between the combine. Like you're not going like 2 months or a month between the combine and the draft. You're like, they're going to be more put together. But I think the DAZN thing, right? Like for you and me, DAZN up in here, you're more than likely having it for the NFL, right? Unless you're willing to pay the $45 for a full TSN package, which gives you the NFL Sunday ticket, you're more than likely going to DAZN anyways.
Yeah.
So if you're an NFL person, you're going to have the ability to watch football from May through until February on one platform, right? For me personally, that's great. I can now, because like for me, I used to have DAZN. I couldn't justify the price for DAZN and TSN when I could just pay an extra $10 on TSN and get what DAZN was giving me, because I'm more of a CFL guy than an NFL guy. So paying $30 odd or like after tax for DAZN when I only really needed it for 2 or 3 games wasn't really my cup of tea when I could have just paid $10 on TSN and gotten the same thing. So I can understand people saying, oh, I don't want to pay $30 for 4 games. I highly doubt that you're going to pay $30 for 4 games. I feel like there's probably going to be like a CFL only package where maybe it's only like $9.99 and all you have access to are those 4 games every month. Like you will not have access to anything else, just those 4 games. There could be something where if you already have a TSN package, you can log in for DAZN for the first year. And you get like they'll link it, right? But I think the DAZN thing makes a lot of sense for both parties.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to go out there and say, if you don't want to spend the money, you should turn in your fan card. But you need to understand that like you're not the target demographic. You're not the people that they're trying to target anymore. they're going younger. They're trying to bring in new fans and they're trying to bring in more revenue.
The way I love to compare it to is, and because I used to work in this field of business years ago, but I used to work at a Rogers Wireless in a mall in the Greater Toronto area, and the one thing you quickly realize is they don't care if you upgrade a current customer. They want new customers.
Yeah.
That's the thing they care about. And I know everyone, that's a bad business model for some people thinking like, oh, they treat the old customers bad. No. But they know if they can attract new customers, that leads to new money, that leads to new revenue. That's why, like, for example, um, going into this year for the Grey Cup halftime show, they're in Calgary. One of the biggest stars in pop music right now is from Calgary. So it's a home run opportunity that they could do as well. I'm just throwing that out there because of, and for those of you who don't know who I'm talking about, I'm referring to Tate McRae. She's from Calgary. Grey Cup's in Calgary. It would be just a win-win combination, kind of like how, to an extent, of the Arkells in Hamilton. But obviously, they're a little bit bigger.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be great.
Yeah. But the way that I look at the whole thing with DAZN is you have the NFL base for DAZN. The fact that DAZN, you get every game. You get NFL Red Zone. But here's the thing, though, too. TSN now has Red Zone and pretty much access to a lot of the game library for a lot of the other games. And even DAZN's worth it pretty much up until playoff time, because after the playoffs, every game for will be on the TSN platform. So that's where it kind of gets tricky. But I feel like they'll probably try to sell you on a package that's CFL, NFL oriented, or like you have a CFL package, but then they're probably going to start teasing, hey, if you want to pay an extra X amount of dollars a month, you'll get the NFL regular season as like a bonus for the first year. Like, because MLS soccer, they did, and it kind of failed, but they did Apple TV, and for season ticket holders, like say, for example, for Toronto FC, you got a code, you put that code in for the year, you're good. So I can even see them doing that with DAZN, to where current season ticket holders for the CFL, I'm not saying they get it for free, but maybe even they say, hey, you're a season ticket holder, you're going to get this at a certain price point compared to, an average customer, because it's like, hey, you're already giving money to the league, but you're going to do that. I feel like there's going to be options, and people shouldn't jump to conclusions, because this whole DAZN thing, we're not going to know more about it probably for at least another 8 to 10 months.
You want to talk about people jumping to conclusions just to realize that, change is good. 35-second play clock.
Yeah.
You look at how the reaction of the 35-second play clock when it was introduced last year, how everyone was up in arms and throwing this huge hissy fit about the 35-second play clock and turning it into the NFL and it slowing down the game and less plays. 35-second play clock during the preseason was an absolute beautiful thing.
I forgot about it at certain points, and I look, and I'm like, oh, boom.
Well, it's because people don't realize that the play clock and the game clock were never synced to begin with, right? Like the game clock would start the moment that play was over, right? So if that play ended at 10:52, well, that play clock, the game clock might not be called, or the play clock might not be blown in until 10:42 or 10:37. So you were already starting to see like that 10-15 second runoff anyways. So I think people don't like change. And when there's change, it's scary, and they tend to overreact without actually giving it a chance to work its way through the system.
It's like the one that I'm more of a problem with, and I still believe it is because of the World Cup, is the field length. Like I was talking to a couple of the statisticians from the league Friday night, and I basically said to them, I truly think because of BMO Field and BC Place being occupied, obviously, by a once in a lifetime event, even for that, like basically, I feel like the field rules would have happened this year had it not been for the World Cup. I feel like it's just because there's not enough time to adjust after the World Cup. I think it's just, hey, you know what, put everything here, and then next year we'll work on it. But here's the thing, though. The reason why I have a problem with that one, because so many people, I'm not paying customer, they're shortening the field. The field width is not changing. 3-down football is not changing. The waggle's not going anywhere. Those are three things that I think make the CFL more unique than a 110-yard field and the goalpost being at the front. Hell, as an NFL savant, I love the fact that they're moving the goalpost back to where now it makes, instead of just being like, hey, we got to get to the 50 so we can kick a 50-yard field goal at the end of the game to try to win or tie the game. No, it's you got to get to the 30. You got to get to the 35 just to guarantee a 50-yard field goal. I think it's going to make teams work harder towards the end of the game. I also think, too, with the modified Rouge, I actually am not totally upset about that one just because I feel like now it's, hey, if you want the point, you got to earn it. I just I feel like it's basically, and I think you may have retweeted it or I retweeted it, that basically it's like if you see someone trying to start a fire with a couple of sticks and you offer them gasoline and they say no. It's just like, no, I'm going to do it my way. It's like, this way's easier and it's going to be more convenient. It's like, nope, I don't care. I want to do it my way. It's you have a subsection of CFL fans that are just honestly stubborn as a mule.
Yeah, and I mean, again, I understand, you know, that 10 yard shortening it, and then obviously standardizing the 15 yards because not every end zone in the CFL was 20 yards to begin with. But like, I my thing is that if this doesn't lead to expansion, then I think it's a waste of time.
100%.
Like the playoffs, the field change, like even the media deal, like going from like uh like 50 million a year to 83 million dollars a year, you need like there needs to be expansion at some point within the 6 year deal. Like I don't know how you go through these changes without expansion during that window. Because if they don't, then I just see it as a big waste of time. Like there's no benefit to it at that point.
Do you think they're just going to settle on 10 or do you think there's a world where they get to 12?
I think there's a world they get to 12, but I think they're going to go for 10 and go from there. And I think the only reason why I think they're going to start at 10 and maybe look at 12 is that those 12 teams, like those two teams are going to be in the States. I don't know if you can do 12 teams across Canada.
I think there's a world where you can. But I will say this, so I do have a take. I do think that Quebec City is the 10th team.
Yeah.
I don't think I think Halifax, like look, we all want Halifax. It's an awesome city. I think from a financial standpoint, Quebec City there's a lot more money to be had with that market compared to a Halifax, especially with this entertainment complex that's going to be built, but it's by the airport and it's half an hour from a downtown core. You don't do that. That's NFL stadiums because those stadiums are monsters, and no disrespect to CFL stadiums, but you know what I mean. Most CFL stadiums are within a major metropolitan downtown. Like I believe TD Place is in downtown Ottawa, correct?
Yeah, it's like just outside the downtown core. Like it's
So
not
it's like
quite,
BMO Field.
like yeah, but like it's downtown, but it's not downtown. Like it's like it's on the busiest downtown street, but it's more south than it is downtown.
Because the only stadiums that I think that are not right in the downtown, if anyone's listening, they can correct me on this, is I would say Regina and I would say Winnipeg. I know Winnipeg's a little bit south of downtown.
It's like the Manitoba University. It's like South Manitoba, like South Winnipeg. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think Regina's is just on the outskirts of downtown. Like even BMO Field, obviously it's Liberty Village. It's considered downtown, but it's not like the core of downtown, kind of like where Scotiabank Arena and the Rogers Center is.
Yeah.
But no, I think that I don't know. But the thing with the States is, though, do you go for border towns or do you go just to random cities in the States? Because
I don't think you go to random cities, but I think if there's, I think you have to be strategic with it. But I think the reason why it's going to be a little bit longer for that is because it's going to be the end of the ratio. You can't go back to what you did in the 90s where Canadian teams had to abide by the ratio, but the American teams didn't because of labor laws. I think we're at a point in now where we don't necessarily need the ratio to begin with. If you want to keep incentivizing teams to play Canadians like you do with the draft picks, maybe you do it with like cap reimbursements or whatnot. Like, hey, if you have an X amount of Canadians on your roster, there's, a percentage of cap is taken off or whatnot. But I do expect that the 11th, the 12th team are in the States. I think, St. Louis would be a great addition. San Diego, Oakland. I would expect them to attack non-NFL markets, or NFL spurred markets like they did with the Stallion. So, I could see a world where maybe they go like a North Dakota, or even a Chicago, Illinois, like Chicago or even like Milwaukee, depending. But I could see them going like into areas that had NFL teams that were kind of, stabbed in the back by their NFL owners. Um, that they feel like could like San Diego, I think would be able to support a CFL team no problem.
Yeah,
Um,
they have a brand new stadium on the university campus that I believe holds about 35,000. Snapdragon Stadium.
yeah, like St.
Um,
Louis, I think would be the same way. They would easily rally behind a CFL team. I think Oakland may not be. I think they're still really tied to the Raiders, even with everything going on. I also don't know how they'd be able to get anything done within that city.
the stadium's a fucking dump.
Yeah, like I feel like that city as a whole, like they don't want sports, they don't care for sports, like the city council there. Um, but yeah, I mean, I could see them going to areas that don't have an NFL team.
There was two other Canadian options I think they could do. I know everyone's kind of saying like, "Oh, what about a Windsor, a London, selfishly Kitchener, Waterloo?" I don't know if any of those would go because this area of Canada and especially London, that's all Tie-Cat country. Like they're like hell, I go to Costco here and there's the Tie-Cat like passes for tickets and there's more like Cats merchandise than there is Argonauts merchandise out this way. Um, and then Windsor, I think because you're on the border with Detroit right there, I don't know if it'd be easy to get people because the Lions are right there. That's the thing. Like you're literally playing in the shadow of an NFL team. It's not like how Toronto and Buffalo or Vancouver, Seattle, where it's a bit of a distance. No, Detroit,
To
like
be
Ford
fair,
Field is literally just over the bridge.
yeah, if Detroit, if the Lions got in on it, we're like, hey, we're gonna be part of this in some way. I think they could.
Yeah, like the Argonauts and the Bills are doing right now,
Yeah.
which they have
Uh,
teased an announcement for tomorrow, by the way.
oh, okay.
Yeah, not my cup
Um,
of tea because I don't like the Buffalo Bills, but it's neither here nor there.
yeah.
Um,
I mean, anything to help, right? I think that organization needs as much help as they can get.
yeah, that's the big thing. But we haven't talked about that much. I know we talked about BC and I know we talked about Sask, but and I've said this about Toronto. My take on them is just I don't think they're going to be as bad as last year. I just don't know if I can comfortably say they're going to be a good team. I feel like for them, they play 7 games before they return to BMO Field. I think they should be if they want to be competitive. I think they have to be 3-4 or 4-3 by the time they come home. And worst case scenario for them is 2-5. I think anything worse than that, I think it'll be really hard to rally and get a true playoff run going. Before we go into this week's games, the first time we get to talk about actual football, like where do you look at Toronto right now?
Honestly, I think they should start prepping for 2027. Like there's nothing nothing on paper right now screams competitiveness. Like they have some dogs, they have some great ball players.
Yep.
Um, they'll be competitive, but I think like their O line is going to be probably one of the best in the league, right? I think their O line is arguably going to be the backbone of that offense. Like if their offense is going to do anything, it's because that offensive line is humming. Um, there's still, in my opinion, there's still some holes within that, defensive line and even the secondary. I think that linebacking core is going to be great. Um, but I think there's too many questions, right? Where's Chad Kelly's game at? Where he's been off for over a year. Leg injuries are so hard to judge right away. Like you don't know where he's gonna end, like where he is physically come, real game action. And then if he struggles or if he gets hurt again, where's Arbuckle? Like is Arbuckle, a product of Dinwiddie, or is Arbuckle a serviceable QB2 in this league? Right. I think there's too many questions for Toronto. I don't like their depth across the board as a whole. I would be shocked if they win more than 5 games this year.
I still feel like there's a world where they kind of go 7-10 or 8-9. I can kind of see them like getting off that slow start, but then they get home and they start kind of finding the gas pedal. But then it might be a little too late. My other question for them too, and I've gotten to speak to him a few times. Mike Miller's a great man, but how are you now that you're the one calling the shots and that you're the one that you got to worry about offense, you got to worry about defense, you got to worry about special teams? The coaches I've seen, I actually got to talk to Demetrius Maxey Friday night. I just asked him, "Hey, how do you feel about the D line this year?" He seemed to feel pretty confident about them. So we'll see. I'll be honest with you, special teams as a unit does concern me. They did have some bad moments in that first preseason game, no matter the monsoon it was. Um, and I know too, the second preseason game is not really the best to judge, just considering most of the guys playing in there are not on the active roster. Most of the guys on there are either on practice squad or they had to say sayonara and they were cut Saturday. I just wonder with Chad more than anything, with more than physical, I wonder where he is mentally. I haven't gotten to speak to him yet. I'm looking to do that before the Montreal game because they're on their bye week this week. But there's also a world too where he's not a Toronto Argonaut in 2027, and there's a completely different quarterback on the rosters because he is going into the last year of his contract, and then maybe he retires, maybe he decides to take a second crack at the NFL, which I don't think he would do, even though there's all those rumors. I think it's more just there's not a lot of smoke to that fire. But the way I look at this team is just basically they're going to control their own destiny, and just really it's going to be, does those 7 games where you're away from BMO Field, does it hurt you or does it bring you together?
Yeah. Being away for 7 games in football is a lot, right? Like we talk about, being away in the NBA or in the NHL, like in hockey, it's a little bit easier. Being away for football though, for seven games, for 7 full weeks, it's a lot.
And the fact
but yeah, I don't know. I think, I look at their roster and I'm like, this should be a competitive team.
Yeah.
I think there could be a lot of games that, they lose by like 4, they lose by 5, they critical error in the third quarter where it's like a fumble or a bad snap, like, those type of incidences where like, you're like, man, that doesn't happen. We probably win the game. So I think they go 5-13. They're picking first. They're planning for 2027 versus planning for a playoff game.
I think there's a chance they potentially sneak in and get the 3, but it's just really going to depend, I think, on between Toronto and Ottawa. There's a real chance that game October 16th is basically for the 3rd playoff spot, in my opinion.
That's fair.
Yeah, I really think there's a chance that October 16th game is for that playoff spot right there. Just like, hey, like that's a must-win game for both teams. Whoever wins it gets 3. Whoever loses that game probably misses the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think for Ottawa, they're hoping to be battling for number 1, not number 3 by then. Like, yeah, like these guys.
Oh, let's be saying it as of right now. It could be completely different in 4 months.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
I get it. I'm just saying, like, I think for Toronto, I think they are battling for that 3rd playoff spot. Like, I don't see them being a top 2 contender in the East. I think in my opinion, I think Montreal and Toronto are going to be battling for that third spot. I'm not sold on Davis Alexander. I think he has to be healthy this year. As much as I think Crum's is a good quarterback, I also just have massive issues with that offense. Like getting rid of Austin Mack, I don't understand it. Like I look at their offense and they're Philpott. Like I don't really see a Montreal offense that doesn't succeed or does succeed if it's not for Philpott.
He gets hurt there in a lot of trouble.
Like getting being the catalyst, right? If he's not a top 3 receiver in the league this year, I don't know how Montreal's offense goes.
Fair enough, but
I think Montreal's going to take a massive step back. I mean, having Stevie Scott out week 1 is not great. As much as Jason Moss and Anthony Calvillo might be really good coaches, I think this is the year where like there's a serious lack of offensive help that will hurt them.
With that being said, we're bringing the ticker back. We got some games to talk about, but as always, games always presented by Gents Boutique. Code is still CFL 2025, 20% off any purchase $50 or more. I am going to go with Montreal to win this game because as a CFL betting man, I have been burned a couple too many times by Hamilton week one. Hamilton also has this weird thing too with week one. I just think Montreal's just that they're out there to prove something this year just after what happened in the Grey Cup. I think this is a game that they take. I don't know if it's I'm not saying they're gonna blow them out or anything, but I just simply I like Montreal to win this game. And also Hamilton's got some injuries already this year too. I know there's not gonna be Wynton McManus in the lineup, and I believe there's a few others as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think Wynton McManus was kind of the like Shamar Bridges is out as well. And I obviously Wynton was the big one.
Shamar Bridges, DNP, Devin Cromwell, DNP, Jonathan Dennis, TNP, Tajuan Garbutt, DNP, Braxton Hill was limited, Arvin Hassani, DNP, Wynton McManus, DNP.
Yeah. So a lot of DNPs. I know they've already ruled out McManus and Bridges. I'd probably
Hill's
go
the only one who's questionable on this list that I just said. Everyone else has been already ruled out.
So probably go Montreal here. I think this one's a coin flip, right? Like, how good is that defense without McManus? Obviously, no Verisek. He's doing his thing with the Colts. But I'd probably go. I'm gonna go with Hamilton. I think at home, start the year. I think they're gonna come out firing.
I'm gonna get a little fun. I'm gonna go Montreal 34, Hamilton 31.
I think it's gonna be like 27 or like 27 to 23. I think it's gonna be a low scoring game.
Total is 50 and a half.
So that would put it at the under, or no, put it, just under. You're gonna put it at like 50. So I don't know. Like, again, it could go either way. Like, I think this game could either be like a 40 point, it could be 38-37 type game, or it could be a
16 to
slow,
13 like the East Final.
Yeah, like it could go either way. It also depends on how aggressive Moss is, right? Moss has a tendency of, like, if they're inside the 40, they're going to kick it on third down, right? So there was a lot of times where they left touchdowns on the board. They left points on the board in the regular season because they decided to kick it inside the 40-yard line multiple times at like 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 2. So, is this a game where Moss is a little bit more aggressive, where he decides, like, okay, if it's inside the 30, I'm going to go for it if it's 3rd and 3 or shorter, right? Because that's where Montreal can kind of get into those low-scoring games where, Maltos Diaz has 16 or 15 points and they're trailing 18 to 15 or 21 to 15, and the other team has 3 touchdowns. Like, I think that's where it's going to go. So I'm going to go Hamilton. I think it's going to be like 27-23.
Friday night, we got Calgary and Winnipeg, and I honestly do think this is the year that Winnipeg... I'm more curious with Winnipeg on how much leash Zach Collaros has as a quarterback, considering Elgrism is waiting in the wings. I don't know how long it is or not, but I do like Calgary here. Look, we talked about Flo and Hutchings coming back. We obviously don't know if Flo is going to play Friday night or not yet. But last year, Calgary kind of had their way with Winnipeg in a couple of the games, including the Stampede Bowl. They just kind of ran them off the field. And I'm not saying I like them to do the same here, but I definitely feel like Calgary can win this game comfortably by at least a touchdown.
Yeah. I mean, I think the big difference is who you have at tackles for Winnipeg now, right? You brought in Broxton as your right tackle. You have Stanley Bryant still as your left tackle. Like, you obviously have Dembski, who's like a premier receiver. They brought back Ontario Wilson, and they have their weapons. Obviously, Brady. My thing is VA. I mean, I don't like Winnipeg's O-line. Obviously, Jake Sresna's with Winnipeg now. Not a huge fan of Calgary's O-line for the most part.
I do like the center, though. I do like Fortin at center.
Yeah. I just overall I'm not huge on their construction. Maybe they'll prove me wrong, but I'm gonna take Winnipeg here. I think it could be a low scoring game, could be a high, like literally like you never it's not neither of those teams are one of those teams like okay, they'll for a fact they'll put 28 on you consistently. Um I would probably say it's going to be like a 31 to 27, 26 final for Winnipeg.
This one's a little lower. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go 23-17 for Calgary. But you and I haven't agreed on either game so far. But I think this last one we're gonna agree on. But I have a twist. I like Ottawa to win this game. I like Hamilton to cover the 3 number though. I think this is a close game because whenever Dinwiddie's played Edmonton, the games have always just been close. It's just the nature of the beast. But I also like the over of where is it right here 51.5 to hit just because when Dinwiddie and I think like we're going to see the offense of Ottawa be electric, but I also think we're going to see a great offensive performance from Edmonton. I just think at the end of the day Ottawa is the better team than Edmonton, and with Edmonton too, I feel like they'll be competitive, but I don't know if it's enough for them to get into the playoffs. I think maybe crossover, but I just don't know if they're one of the best 3 teams in the West.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I'm going to take Ottawa.
I'm taking Ottawa too. I'm just taking Edmonton to cover.
Yeah. I don't know if they cover the spreads at what 3.5.
It's 3.
3.
Right, three flat.
I don't think they're cover. I've not been a huge fan of Cody Fajardo for most of his career. I think he's kind of that like prototype game manager type player where
Me with
if
them
you
though
force
is more
him to
defense than Cody Fajardo, by the way. It's how good is the defense this year.
that's fair.
Yeah.
I think Ottawa can turn the ball over pretty easily. That they can generate their turnovers. So can you force Cody into bad throws? Right? Can you take away possessions from Edmonton? And I think the answer is yes. And I think that's what's going to be the difference maker in this game where I don't expect Cody to get into much of a rhythm unless they can get the running game going. But, even if you look at the receiving core, it's going to be Austin Max, their number 1.
Yep.
Zach Midas might take that step finally, be healthy enough to take that step as the top 3 in that offense. But I think if you can kind of force Fajardo to go to other people outside of Austin Mack and kind of force him into those tight throws, you can get him off his rhythm and get the W pretty sound. Obviously they should have a really good offensive line, so getting after him should be pretty difficult overall, but I think you're going to see if you see he can get caught off guard. I think his ability to read a defensive front, like a front 7, is below average for what you'd probably want from a starting quarterback, in my opinion. So if you can kind of get some stunts and some blitzes in early to get him off his rhythm, I think he's done for the game.
So I simply think and also too because after I don't know if you remember the game last year, but when Edmonton came to Toronto and there was a lot of shit talking on the sidelines with a certain player who I believe was Jordan Williams, who's still in Edmonton.
Yeah,
Dinwiddie's in Ottawa now, so I feel like this is always a game that Dinwiddie's going to kind of take personally, just because of, like we said, there were certain guys barking at him and stuff like that. I feel like too for him, this is just him both teams are going to put their stamp on it. I just think it's more that Ottawa's the better team than Edmonton right now. I feel like Edmonton's probably going to be around, I don't know, 8-10, 9-9. I just don't know if because that's the other thing too. Like when I look at Winnipeg as well, like I don't know what they're going to be. I feel like there's a world where they fall off the cliff and that they win like 6 or 7 games, but I think there's the world as well where they go 10-8. I just don't know what they're going to be at. I think we're going to have to. Them and Ottawa are the 2 biggest onions in the CFL.
That's fair. I respect that.
Yeah, and it's not in a bad way. It's just in the we don't know what to expect because for one you're expecting a step forward, for one you're expecting a step back. It's just who goes in what direction. We're going to find out over the next 21 weeks.
Exactly.
The 21-week journey kicks off. It was a blast getting to
the
know
road
Shane
to Calgary,
Ryan.
baby.
Yep, that's the thing. 21 weeks of the regular season, and then 24 weeks till Calgary. Hopefully, the two of us are there. Who knows? Will be a lot of fun regardless. But guys, CFL football is here. It's here to stay. The 21-week marathon to get to Cowtown starts this week with 3 games, 3 teams on the bye, which sucks, but it is what it is. But this is the time of the show as we wrap up. Shane, if people want to get to know you more, plug yourself.
Jeff, thank you so much, Griff, for having me on. It's always a pleasure talking CFL, talking Red Blacks. So thank you very much. If you want more of me, you can head on over to X for Shane _ 13th Man, 13th Man Football on Twitter and on X and on Instagram, and then 13th Man Sports on Facebook, and obviously 13th Man Sports.blog. For our website, we have a CFL weekly show that goes live Wednesdays at 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 o'clock Pacific. And then obviously there's Trench Talk that is usually offensive and defensive line focus that should be airing kind of consistently going forward on Thursday mornings. So yeah, that's where you can find me. And again, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure. And hopefully we'll talk more throughout the season.
Absolutely, absolutely. All the links will be down below in the episode description, whether you are watching on YouTube, listening on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. 434 of these bad boys are in the bag. We'll see you for 435 next week as the Argonauts get ready to play the Montreal Alouettes. Have a great night, everyone.